Has Britain's immigration policy failed? Welcome to Mark and Pete. Here's a thought.
Those who are torn from where they are born seek refuge from discrimination and rejection. But when lost and forlorn and targeted with scorn, being foreign has a whole new complexion. Now, it's interesting that many people feel that perhaps the immigration policies of the Tory government today has failed. Albania's Prime Minister has accused the UK of scapegoating his citizens to accuse its failed policies on borders and migration. Well, what's more important is he told the BBC recently that the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman's remarks about the UK being invaded would fuel xenophobia. Well, this is escalating, and what's more important is that some of the numbers of people who are coming to the shores of Britain is escalating rapidly. Many people are actually concerned that the prospects of being able to cope with those individuals who are not just coming from Albania but many other places is so out of control now that there is no way in which we can solve the problem in the near future. What's worse is that we have seen an atrocity occur where firebombing on an immigration processing centre was motivated by extreme right-wing terrorist ideology. And how does it go from here? Clergyman Pete, I ask you, what's your view on the current situation and what should Britain do to solve the problem?
Well, the current situation has been building over the years from a policy of just letting people come in illegally into the country. Now, this is an issue because as soon as you have a situation where there is a law, or in this case, a procedure to be followed as well as a law, and then it's just ignored, what the people who tend to be forgotten are those who followed the law. You know, people come into the country who immigrate into this country legally are being sidelined. People who are entering illegally, and there are many thousands coming in, sometimes hundreds over a weekend by boats on the south coast, and there are other methods of entry as well. And so what we're seeing is something that's out of control through a lack of political will to sort it out. The law is there, you know. I said illegal immigration. It's against the law already. The problem comes from being lax in the implementation because, of course, no government wants the headlines of them being cruel to the people coming in, because in general, Britons are very compassionate and won't react well to that. It's thought. And so that's how I see the situation. People know what the problem is. There is a simple way to address it. But it's not going to be done because they fear the political ramifications of being seen to be cruel.
Yep.
And in terms of, you ask, what is the solution? The solution is, as I see it, is to apply the law and to do two very simple things. One is you need to be caring and compassionate. I think we do need to, as a country, be prepared to harbour people who are genuine refugees if we possibly can. And the Bible says, Deuteronomy 27 verse 19, cursed is anyone who withholds justice from the foreigner. A foreigner coming in, someone coming into the country who is a refugee should be allowed in. But you know, note that it says justice mustn't be withheld. It would also be unjust to let in someone who is simply coming over illegally for financial gain, or to come in just because they fancied coming in, or they thought that they could benefit from the benefit system here. Whatever it might be, if they don't have a legitimate cause to come in, they shouldn't be allowed in. And it's not only illegal but unfair to those who are coming in legally. So that's the first thing I would say. Is following that is set up a camp where you can swiftly and efficiently put money into it, get a proper system in place to quickly determine whether people are actual refugees, and if they're not, send them back to the last country they came from. And the second thing is, because this is far better way if you can get this in place, stop people coming in boats across. So the navy, and perhaps the border patrol people as well can be involved in intercepting boats as they come across the English Channel and towing them back to France. Don't let them get to Britain. Those two things, if effort were put into it, if the government would be able to ride through the unpopularity in certain quarters, it would take away the uncertainty over what's going to happen and the fear of it, which resulted, as we know, in that bombing recently, and also if you can get through that first period, people would stop wanting to come. You would severely reduce the attempts to come across, so it would get easier over time. That would be my solution, businessman Mark. What say you?
Well, I have a particular view on this, which actually does align with an eminent leader in business, which is the Conservative peer and chairman of ASDA, Lord Stewart. He recently answered questions on this subject in BBC's Question Time, but I had a similar view on what could happen. Now, this picture is very complex, but to summarize, the only way to tackle this is a combination of efforts, but essentially a lot of it is around diplomatic discussions with the likes of France, Albania, and many others. You have to get around the table and negotiate. What you can't do is push back just simply putting people in boats or planes or sticking them in Rwanda or wherever. Now, here's the thing on a positive note. We've seen that when we came out of Europe, the Brexit approach, that many, many people, labourers, workers, have actually not come back to Britain. And what's interesting is, and I liked his approach, which was that not all of the immigrants that have come in to this country, not all of those people are skilled individuals, but a lot are willing to work. And the reason that they're coming is because they're either fleeing atrocities or are just simply trying to get away from incidents and issues that are happening in their country. Now, the numbers are high, but what he has proposed, and I think that it's a valid one, is to screen individuals and get them into the labour force where we have some serious shortfalls. So interestingly, the government has already highlighted that there is a major shortfall which is hitting the economy of Britain because they can't get enough of people from, for example, and in no particular order, fruit pickers, labourers who need to work to help improve the roads, those individuals who can help, even ironically, in shop work, where obviously somebody like Lord Stewart himself is very familiar with the shortfall in staff. And so I think that's a very important idea because, we are, without any doubt, struggling. Similarly, again, what he also identified is that there are individuals that can be trained. So there are skilled people that are coming and they can be channeled into areas, whether it be in the health service, in engineering, construction, and others. So to me, I think it's having a policy of diplomacy where you agree with countries, other countries where they're coming from, about having a strategy, which I don't think that Britain has really got to. And similarly, again, ironically, filling the gaps where we actually can boost our economy by using people and embracing them. So to your point, as you've said, it's actually giving them not just a haven to get away from the atrocity, but an opportunity to build a career and a life.
No, that's it.
In
what
a
you say is
positive
interesting.
way.
I think if that were put into place, that would certainly lessen those who wanted to come in illegally.
Yes.
I guess he's not talking there about people coming across in boats, is he? He's talking about having a policy to bring people.
It's a bit of both. You need
a
policy, absolutely. You need a broad range of integrated policies that work at different levels. From those who are strategically coming via France and many other places, to indeed those who do happen to come on boats. But ultimately, I think what the criticism here is, it's not evident at this moment in time as we speak that Braverman our Home Secretary, has an integrated policy. And I think part of the problem is that whilst I agree that she's very plain talking and straight talking, some of the language, whether you like it or not, has riled a lot of individuals. And I don't just mean the immigrants themselves. I'm talking about politicians, people in society, because it's fueled xenophobia.
Yes, I think it was a mistake to use the term invasion.
Invasion, yes, exactly.
I think I could see what she meant, and I think I agree in that it's an invasion. There were too many people, and indeed it's a concerted effort by certain gangs to come in and carry out illegal acts. And especially at the moment, especially from Albania, but it has been from other countries in the past. So I'm not singling them out, but they are the issue at the moment, that particular country. But in using that term, here's the issue: she gave a hostage to fortune. She gave her opponents something to hang their hat on as a criticism. Now I could see she was doing it knowing it would have that effect to shore up her credentials as being someone who was going to take it seriously. But it was the wrong word to use. You didn't need to say that it was an invasion. You could have said the numbers were simply too high. There's too great a number for us to bear. And use just words that simply describe what's happening, rather than giving a sort of militaristic flavour to it. As to whether this, who knows why the actual motivation for this bomber, whether it was this bomber, whether he actually listened to Suella Braverman, I don't think that's known. Whether it was particularly that, but I can see from people's responses in survey after survey, and in town halls led by people like Nigel Farage, so that what people become more and more frustrated when they see, to your point, that there isn't a plan. If they saw that there was a plan in place, people wouldn't react by lashing out in that way. They could say, "Oh, something is being done," and I think we've addressed it at different levels. I was looking at the illegal immigration, the big problem at the moment, especially at the coming over on the coast. You're looking at how do you control migration, and in having a control migration policy, that means there's less incentive for people to try and coming in illegally. Now, hopefully that they will come across that. I mean, what we need to do is whenever there's a survey, which surveys are put out by the government on finding out what do people think, always say not that you don't want there to be any immigration. Say that you want immigration to be controlled, and there to be no illegal immigration apart from when someone is a refugee. That's what you need to. So be reasonable, because otherwise you're going to be labelled as a far right extremist, and that, although people may well do that anyway, you need to make it so it can't stick.
Well, I think that what's important as well is that no surprise here that the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has accused the government of having lost control. Now, what he's highlighting is that from figures that have come from the government that almost 40,000 people have crossed the channel in small boats so far in 2022. Now, that's the highest number since figures began to be collected in 2018. Essentially, what he's now pointing is that Braverman is under big pressure to tackle this, to not only solve the small boat immigration challenge, but the wider policy, and make clear what the strategy will be. And I think that this is what I would come back to, and I'm trying to put what is a very emotive subject for many people, taking it into the positive light. There are business people who can see that there is an opportunity. I use Lord Stewart as one obvious example. There are many others who are saying, actually, we've got an opportunity here. We can educate these people, train them. Yes, in many ways, some of them possibly won't be able to serve Britain long term, but we can certainly, to your point, humanitarianly actually help them. And I think that's the first thing. The second thing then is, I do think that Britain, whilst it has taken the decision, yes, folks, it has done it, to come out of Europe, it has to think differently about how it now gets around the table with international leaders in Europe and other places around the world. And as we very well know, whilst Albanian Prime Minister may or may not be right in the commentary and the criticism, it's not just Albania. They're coming from Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Sudan, Egypt, Vietnam, and there's many others. albeit in varying proportions. This is a chance for Britain to get around the table, be a leader, show that they've got humanitarian policies, but at the same time, they can also show how you can collaborate and help people recognize that Britain is a place that you can do business with.
Yes. So, what do you think? That's the Mark and Pete solutions to the failed immigration policy in Britain. Put a comment below. Let us know what you think. Right, wrong? Do you have a better solution? Let us know. Make sure you're subscribed, and see you next time on Mark and Pete.